Hey guys, I've never really done this sort of thing before, but having watched UFC for about 2 or so years now, since about UFC 80, and watching people do it online, such as devinemassacre, I really thought it was about time that I started doing predictions as well. I might start doing review shows as well at some point, but we'll have to see how this goes and then just see how I feel doing this sort of thing on a regular basis, really. I started watching UFC, as I said, about UFC 81. I watched Pride before that on YouTube with clips such as Vanderlei Silva and Crow Cop, all those sorts of good things back in the day when those guys were really good. I think it's about time that I start reviewing UFC now and predicting it. So here goes. So I'm going to be predicting UFC 115, Liddell versus Franklin. I'll do the main card. I probably won't do it all the time. It's just the fights that I'll show more interest in and actually have something to say about them, because I'm not the most informative guy that's going to be on here, but I'll give it a go anyway. So the first fight on the main card will be Carlos Condit versus Rory McDonald. Now, Carlos Condit was looking good in WEC. He was finished people with mostly submissions and a TKO, but since coming to the UFC, he's won by split decision and also lost by split decision. I know you can't really apply MMA maths, but you've got to wonder where this guy's mind is at right now. I mean, he's just had a split decision, loss and win, so close decisions over other competitors recently, and he's going up against a guy called Rory McDonald, who's on a 10-fight win streak out of 10 professional fights. He's never gone to a decision. He's winning by submission and TKO. This guy's a beast, and he's looking really good out there at the moment. As a result, I think I'm going to give it to Rory McDonald in the second round by TKO. Carlos Condit, he was a good fighter in WEC. I just think he needs to get that spark back in him. Maybe it's the rising competition from WEC to UFC that's brought it on him. But we'll have to see how it goes. Okay, next fight of the night will be Rothwell versus Ivel. Both these guys have just lost to the new breed of UFC heavyweights in Velasquez and Dos Santos. Neither of these guys can be criticised for those losses. Dos Santos and Velasquez, they're both beasts of fighters. They're in their 20s and they're just coming up into their prime now, so they look good now, but a couple of years time those two guys will be insane. So Ben Rothwell and Ivel are still in my good books. I still think they're good fighters, but in particular I think it's going to be Ivel that's a good fighter. With his wins in Pride by kickboxing, just gunning himself through people, and he's going against a guy like Ben Rothwell, who's a good fighter. He's been giving himself a good name, but I still think Ivel's that step ahead of him at the moment, so I'm going to give it to Ivel by first round knockout. Ivel. Okay, so a welterweight bout between Paulo Thiago and Martin Kampmann. This fight will be interesting. Martin Kampmann was looking really good before he went against Paul Daley. He was supposed to fight Mike Swick, but then that fight kind of got screwed up because I think one of them got injured, Mike Swick obviously, because he wasn't fighting. And then went against Paul Daley and he got himself knocked out on the feet. That's kind of happened to him twice before. He's had 3 losses and 3 of them are by TKO or KO. Bearing that in mind, Paulo Thiago is a beast. I mean, he's in the SWAT team equivalent in Brazil, so he's a beast inside of the ring and outside the ring. Having knocked out a guy like Josh Koscheck, this guy's something to deal with, and I think he's going to be a future welterweight contender. So, bearing that in mind, I think I'm going to give it to Paulo Thiago. I think I'm going to give it to him by submission in the third round. I think he's going to kind of tear him up a little bit on the feet. Might be quite close, but I still think Thiago's going to have the advantage there, even though that's Kampmann's strong point. And he's going to take it to the ground. He's going to finish him by submission. So, on to the co-main event between Mirko Cro Cop and Pat Barry. Now, what I have to say here is that Cro Cop was one of those guys that was really good. When I first started watching MMA, he's one of the guys that I looked out for. I mean, with his win over Bob Sapp, breaking an orbital bone in his face there, he had some serious power, not just in his punches like against Bob Sapp, but also in his kicks especially. So that guy really got me into MMA, and he's the reason why I'm doing this sort of thing now. Bearing that in mind, Pat Barry is a younger version of Mirko Cro Cop. They're both really good at kickboxing. The question is whether Cro Cop has still got it in him. I mean, he hasn't looked like he's had it in UFC as such. I mean, he had that win over the Australian, I forget his name now, but that was last minute on the Australian's part, so big props to that guy. But he had a close decision over him, and a win you could say over Al Turk, but it was more of a poke to the eye against a guy like Pat Barry, whose only loss is Tim Hague, which is kind of respectable, and apart from that, he's been knocking people out. His last fight against Anthony Hardonk, he looked good. So bearing that in mind, I think I'm going to give it to Barry, just because of the fact that I think Cro Cop's slightly over the hill now, and Barry, it's kind of like the passing of the torch. So Patrick Barry, I might give it to him by knockout in the 3rd round. Okay, on to the main event. And as just said, I've been watching UFC for about 2 years now, and as a result I wasn't there when Chuck Liddell and people like Rich Franklin were really in their prime. So when it says that a Legends fight, I'm really not that interested in it, just because I wasn't there to witness how good they really were. I mean, back in the day they must have been good, but both of them have been losing or winning just by marginal amounts now. Chuck Liddell has won 1 in his last 5 fights. Rich Franklin had that win over Wanderlei Silva, but again that was close, and Wanderlei Silva is kind of over the edge himself as well. They were both really good. They both were really good at knocking people out back when they were in their prime. But I'm going to give it to Chuck Liddell, mainly because of the fact that he is the legend that I respect more than Franklin, but also because I really think he deserves a win before he quits. I mean, it's going to have to be soon, and he's still got that knockout power. I still think he's got it in him. He may just be able to be knocked out easier himself now as well. I'm going to give it to Chuck Liddell by decision. He's going to bring it to Franklin close a few times, but I don't think he's going to be able to finish it off. So Liddell by decision. I hope you like this, guys. I'm only going to carry it on if it goes well for me now, if I find time to do it. I'm doing A-level exams at the moment, so I'm going to be fairly busy, but I'll try and keep it up. Alright guys, have a good day, and I'll